Look directly into lens. Quiet. There was a moment, maybe you remember yours, where you were at the absolute bottom. Could have been a divorce, a diagnosis, a season where you genuinely didn't know how to get through the next day, let alone the next week. Where you couldn't explain what was wrong because you didn't fully know yourself. Where the people who loved you were trying their best, but their best required you to talk, to explain, to perform some version of okay. And your dog didn't ask what was wrong, didn't offer advice, didn't need you to explain a single thing. Pause. They just came and pressed the full weight of their side against yours in the dark. And somehow, that was enough. Quieter. I don't think that's an accident. People say dogs are a gift from God all the time. It's on pillowcases. It's in Instagram captions under golden hour photos. And I don't think those people are wrong. I just think they're stopping about 5 layers too shallow. Because a gift is something you receive and enjoy, a nice surprise. And what a dog actually does to your life is, actually wait. Let me say this more carefully because I keep rushing past the most important part. A dog doesn't just make your life better. A dog teaches you things about yourself that nothing else reaches. Things that the people who love you most can't show you because they're too close or too human or too tangled up in the same fears you are. And I think that's intentional. I think that's the whole point. Slow reset, grounded throughout human history, across civilizations that never spoke to each other, across religious traditions that disagreed on almost everything. The dog has occupied a specific, recurring spiritual role, not as a symbol, as a teacher, a mirror, a daily living practice in the kind of love most of us spend our whole lives trying to figure out. Point 4 is the one I keep coming back to personally, because it's about what dogs do in our darkest seasons, not despite the darkness, but toward it. And it connects to something that every spiritual tradition has tried to describe and almost none of us have experienced from another human being. Quiet look into lens. If you've ever felt like your dog came into your life at exactly the right moment, stay with me. I think I can explain why that might not be coincidence. Subscribe if this resonates. Okay, let's get into it. This is not a Western idea. It's not a Christian bumper sticker dressed up as philosophy. It runs across thousands of years in dozens of civilizations that had no contact with each other. In ancient Egypt, Anubis, the god who guided souls through death, wore the head of a dog. In Zoroastrianism, dogs are considered sacred, their gaze believed to ward off evil. Indigenous traditions across North America held dogs as spiritual protectors and companions in both life and death. In Celtic mythology, dogs carried the symbolism of healing and loyal passage into the afterlife. Across millennia, cultures that couldn't have compared notes arrived at the same conclusion. The dog is not simply an animal. It holds a specific place between the human world and something beyond it. And the question worth sitting with is, why? Why dogs? Across all of these traditions, why not horses or wolves or birds? I think the answer is in what they do, in what only they do. We didn't invent the spiritual significance of dogs. We discovered it, independently, everywhere. And that kind of universal convergence usually means something is true. Unconditional love is one of the central concepts in nearly every spiritual tradition that has ever existed. It's also one of the hardest things for a human being to actually do. We love our people, but conditionally, when they're kind to us, when they show up, when they don't disappoint us too badly, when they earn it in the small daily ways we track without admitting we're tracking. We can't fully help it. That's how human attachment is wired. But a dog loves you after you've ignored them for 3 days, after you raised your voice at something that wasn't their fault, after you forgot the walk for the 4th time this week, after you came home so empty there was nothing left to give, and you barely looked at them. They don't love you because you earned it. They love you because you exist, and I think they were made that way, not randomly but specifically, so that we could feel what that actually feels like from the inside, so that we'd have something real to aim at. Here's the part that's worth sitting with for many people. The dog is the only being in their life who has ever loved them this way, without conditions, without a running score, without ever once withdrawing. That's supposed to land. Every major spiritual tradition places enormous value on presence, on living in the current moment rather than replaying the past or rehearsing the future. Buddhism built an entire practice around it. Stoicism returned to it constantly. Christian mysticism called it contemplation. Sufism called it fanya. The specific vocabulary changes. The instruction is always the same. Humans are genuinely terrible at this. We ruminate, we anticipate. We replay the conversation that already happened and pre-fight the one that hasn't. Your dog has never once worried about yesterday. They have never lost a single night of sleep about next month. They live in a permanent, unbroken now, and they pull you into it every single time they drop a toy at your feet, or push their nose into your hand, or show up at your feet for no reason and look at you like you're the only thing in the room worth looking at. That relentless, joyful, slightly unhinged present moment energy, it's not naivety, it's mastery. They are doing, naturally and effortlessly, what monks spend decades in practice trying to reach. And then there's the zoomies, that pure, unself-conscious explosion of joy for absolutely no external reason, just because the energy built up and the moment called for it. That's not chaos. That's what a being looks like when it carries no weight from yesterday. This is the one I wanted you to hold on for. There is documented, repeatable, peer-reviewed evidence that dogs respond to human distress differently from almost any other creature. When they sense suffering, real suffering, not performed, they don't become uncomfortable. They don't find somewhere else to be. They don't look for something useful to do. They move toward it. Think about what that means. Most creatures, and honestly most humans, become awkward around pain. They don't know what to say, so they say the wrong thing. They give you space when what you needed was presence. They change the subject because your grief makes them feel helpless. Your dog has never once decided your pain was too much, has never needed you to perform okay before they'd sit with you, has never left the room because things got heavy. This is why therapy dogs are now used in trauma centers, in oncology wards, in veteran PTSD programs, grief counseling, pediatric hospitals. Not because they say anything, but because they stay, completely, without flinching. In almost every spiritual tradition, the divine is described as a presence that does not abandon you in suffering, that witnesses, that stays with you in the dark rather than waiting for you in the light. Your dog does that, naturally, every time, without being asked. Hold. Long pause. This is the harder lesson. Less comfortable. More true. Dogs respond to who you actually are, not who you're presenting yourself as. They feel your real emotional state, not the managed version. They sense the anxiety underneath the calm voice. The grief you haven't named yet. The anger you've decided not to acknowledge. They've been quietly measuring you the entire time you thought you were fine. You can lie to your therapist. You can lie to your partner. You can lie to yourself for years and pull it off. Your dog is reading your cortisol levels in real time. They know. And their behavior reflects it back to you whether you asked for the feedback or not. The dog that acts out during your worst seasons. The one that becomes clingy when you're secretly falling apart. The one that goes quiet when the household goes cold and everyone's pretending it hasn't. They are a living, breathing mirror. And sometimes what they're showing you is the exact thing you most need and least want to look at. This idea runs through ancient traditions too. The animal as revealer, not a judge, not a critic, just an honest reflection offered without malice of what's actually there. Your dog isn't misbehaving. Your dog is reporting. Here's the thesis. Plainly, I think whatever force designed this universe, God, or the universe itself, or whatever word sits right in your chest when you reach for it, gave us dogs because we needed a teacher we couldn't argue with, couldn't dismiss, couldn't out-logic, or out-explain, or intellectualize our way past. You can debate a sermon. You can find 100 reasons why philosophy doesn't apply to you specifically. You cannot explain away a dog that loves you completely on your absolute worst day. Every day with a dog is a quiet, persistent course in loving without keeping score, showing up without being asked, finding genuine joy in the exact moment you're standing in, staying present with someone who is suffering, receiving love you didn't earn and cannot repay. That's not pet ownership. That's a curriculum, and I think it was built that way on purpose. Creator sits, genuinely still, no performance. Now the hardest part, I want to stay here for a moment. Maybe the most spiritually significant thing about a dog is the thing we grieve most. They don't stay long. 10 years, 12, 15. If you're lucky and careful and little blessed, and I've thought about this a lot, why would something designed to teach love be designed to leave so soon? If the lesson is so important, why isn't there more time? The answer that keeps coming back, because the lesson only fully works if it ends. Because love only shows its complete weight when there is loss at the other side of it. Because a dog that lived forever would teach you comfort, but a dog that doesn't teaches you something much harder and much more necessary. That love is worth it anyway. Every single time, with every dog, knowing exactly how it ends, we choose it anyway. And maybe that's the whole point. Maybe that's the thing we're being taught to do. Quiet! Don't rush this one. That warmth I mentioned at the beginning, them pressing the full weight of their side against yours in a dark room, when you hadn't asked, when you couldn't have explained what you needed, when you were at the bottom of something and didn't have the words. Pause. Look down briefly. Back up to lens. That wasn't just comfort. That was a being created with the specific capacity to love without condition, to stay without being asked, to witness without judgment, choosing you in your worst moment without a second of hesitation. I don't think that happens by accident. I think something that precise, that ancient, that consistent across every culture that has ever existed is a gift with a purpose. And the purpose is to make you better at love, softer at it, more willing to stay in the hard moments, more present in the quiet ones, more capable of receiving something you didn't earn. Your dog is not just in your life. Your dog is working on your soul. Share this with someone who needed their dog more than they expected to. Man's. Fade. Silence. No music. Just stillness.